Do-do-do, 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 do-do-do. Ba-da-da, da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. I am not a gamer. At least I don't consider myself a gamer. I like games. I grew up on games. But slowly over the years, I've stopped being a gamer. Now, I still play games, but I'm more of a indie/strategy type of gamer now. The one really nice thing about being even just a part-time gamer nowadays is Linux has pretty dang good ports for games. It isn't like the old days where most games weren't ported to Linux. A lot of games are ported natively to Linux nowadays, but not every game is on Linux. That's obviously obvious. Because even still, most gamers are on Windows. While a majority of the new games are on Linux nowadays, a bunch of old games that I have nostalgia for came out before people were porting things to Linux. So for instance, Oblivion, which is a game I really love, but you can't play it on Linux. Another game I love is Banished and Victoria 2. These are all games where there isn't really a reason for them to ever get a release on Linux because they are old and they're not played as much. Oblivion's not Skyrim. People aren't playing Oblivion the way people are playing Skyrim, where they just buy the new release every year. And that's where Proton comes in. Proton is a really good system nowadays. It's it works surprisingly well. I'm not saying it's perfect. It is glitchy with a lot of things. For instance, there's a game I really like called Kenshi, where sometimes the menus don't work as properly, or sometimes in some games it slows down or it chops up, or sometimes it just crashes a bit more often. But for other games, it runs perfectly. It's really intuitive. I'm not saying you couldn't run games before. I remember when I first started using Linux, people were using Wine to run games and programs for Linux, and I never really figured it out. I know Proton is built on Wine and everything, but I think the killer feature of Proton is the ease of access. Proton comes really well, neatly in a little package. Wine was so hard that I ended up completely going from any Windows application, right? I used to use Photoshop, I use GIMP now, I used to use Premiere, I use Kdenlive. I don't play games as much. I think part of the reason I stopped being such a gamer is that I fell into Linux stuff. And one of the first games I was able to run on Linux was Super Tux Kart, which is probably an old thing. If anyone else remembers playing Super Tux Kart, I mean, it's still there, but I don't think anyone plays it anymore. What else was it? There was Zero AD, and there was this real-time strategy game that I actually chunked a bunch of hours into. Hopefully I can put it somewhere over here or something. It was actually really fun. I should play that again. But because I had such difficulty setting up games that first time, I never really went back to setting up games. I would always just keep a Windows distro, not a Windows distro. I would always keep a second boot of Windows running on my computer because it just was more convenient for me. Well, recently I've fully gotten rid of Windows on my computer. It just happened by accident, and I realized I really don't use Windows that much. But even still, every once in a while, I get the craving to play Oblivion and Banished and some other games that are on Windows. And since I didn't have it, I thought, hey, I heard about Proton recently. I know it came out with the Steam OS sort of stuff, and I thought, hey, might as well try it. And lo and behold, it's amazing. Like, again, I know I said it's glitchy and everything, but I didn't think it would even be like 1% as good as it is right now. It is like, it sort of blows my mind how easily it works, right? I started using it more as a testing sort of thing because I'm like, oh, this is a neat trick probably. And I started playing Oblivion, and like 3 hours went by, and then I'm like, oh my god, I'm still playing Oblivion. Like, I stopped testing. I was just playing Oblivion. It was amazing. Like, I completely, like, it, I always assumed there'd be like an input lag or some sort of thing coming with it, but there's nothing. It's perfect. Maybe it isn't perfect. Maybe it's slightly off, but I'm just not a god gamer enough to realize that it's off. I don't know how Proton does with like AAA brand new games or that kind of stuff, but from what I heard, it seems pretty decent. For like my purposes, it works really well. I would 100% recommend it. I mean, it's free. Even if you don't play games, like I don't play games that much, just try using Proton. It's surprisingly good, and I think Proton really helps in allowing people to transition to Linux a lot more easier than it did in the olden days, where nowadays there's barely a reason not to use it, right? I mean, 90% of what we do on computers is just on the web browser or in programs. And the one thing that Linux users don't have application support, right? Sure, gaming is nice and all, but we still don't run Premiere on Linux and stuff. Other applications don't run great. But at this point, you have web browsers and you have games, and you can run them both really well on Linux, right? It makes the whole transition a lot easier. Now, if we could also get applications, that would make everything a lot easier. Like, people would no longer have a reason to, but I don't see that happening for a little bit. Now, as I said, I'm not a god gamer, so if there are people who run AAA games using Proton, please put in the comments how it actually works. I'll try and pin some good ones so people who actually want to try Proton for AAA or competitive gaming can do it. I don't think there is still probably a little bit of lag, so I wouldn't probably expect it to run competitive. Like, it probably runs competitive games just fine, but I think you would be losing an edge. I don't know. Obviously, if someone plays like CSGO or Valorant or something with Proton, or like Rocket League, put in the comments, just let us know, right? And thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.